It was over 400 miles an hour. It could operate at higher than 40,000 feet. Its two 20mm cannons and 4 machine guns were fierce enough to bring down the mightiest planes in the Luftwaffe's arsenal. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Tens of thousands of British civilians and hundreds of fighter pilots were killed during the war. And it wasn't only the RAF who believed in the Spitfire. It was flown by nearly all Allied air forces.
Hello, Paul. It's John Sargent here. Well done. Brilliant flying.
Thanks, John.
Do you think we're a bit old-fashioned, or do you think that, you're the old-fashioned plane?
This is a beautiful machine. It's, as I've said before, it's a work of art, and flying very well. Right, Paul, we're not too far from Birmingham now, where we want to be.
It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement this plane generates. But as the West Midlands spread out below us, it's time to re-engage with our mission.
We're now right over the factory at Castle Bromwich that produced half the Spitfires in the war. But on the 13th of August, 1943, one particular Spitfire was built there, and that's ours, the MH434. So it's a great homecoming.
During the Second World War, the most important Spitfire factory in the country was here at Castle Bromwich. And one man can remember actually building the plant. His name is Eddie Fox.
Our job as engineers was to make and build the production lines so that you can make Spitfire aircraft.
Well, you're going to show me around, are you?
Yep.
Today, this is a state-of-the-art car factory. When Eddie arrived here for the first time, over 70 years ago, it was an empty shell. But he and his team soon created an efficient production line. When MH434 was built in August 1943, it was one of 300 Spitfires completed that month. Not bad for a man in his early 20s.
How many Spitfires altogether did you end up building here?
I think it was about 12,000.
And that's more than any other factory in the country.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What was it like when you produced the very first Spitfire from this plant?
It went out through the big hangar doors, and we all stood and cheered and really patted ourselves on the back, if you like, because we got one off. Alec Henshaw, the chief test pilot, he gave us a display with that aircraft.
Oh, right.
God, you talk about flying low. And we never took our heads off, I don't know, but he really threw that Spitfire around. And that also gave us a great warm feeling, knowing that that was the first one that had come off the production line, and he did everything that Alec Henshaw wanted it to do,
By 1943, nearly 16,000 people were working round the clock here, building Spitfires and other aircraft. Nearly half of them were women. With on-the-job training and no shortage of work, people flocked here. Catherine de Gregorio was just 16 when she arrived from County Limerick in Ireland. She was working in the tool room when MH434 was built.
Coming from a little village and then come over here to a big place, and to think you're going to build Spitfires, I can't explain the feeling, You sort of think to yourself, you're in a dream. It's not real. But of course, it was real. It was good. It was very good. And the people were lovely. People were all very cheerful and carrying on, helping each other along. Such a delicate thing to sort of put all them bits together and see what comes at the end of it. Give you a lift, I think, oh, I helped to build that. I bet you feel quite proud. I think we took part in it all, yes.
Catherine didn't think she was building a legend. Nobody thought that, but she knew that her work was vital. She was determined to do her bit, and that certainly deserves a salute from one of her planes.
Oh, yes. Brilliant, Paul. Well done. OK, Paul, that was amazing, wasn't it? Going back to see the factory where your Spitfire was built.
It is nice to take the aeroplane home.
Eddie and Catherine's stories show the passion people felt for their plane. It's amazing how many people found themselves caught up in the whole Spitfire story.
One of the people who lived here during the Second World War was June Eastlake, and she was just a little girl when her whole life was turned upside down by the war.
During the war, June's family lived just a few miles from the factory at Castle Bromwich.
The Spitfire factory was one of the first factories that was targeted.
So you remember it?
Yes, yeah.
And what was it like?
Absolutely dreadful. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. The drone of the German aeroplanes, the sound of the bombs coming down. Every time a plane came in or out, I used to shake.
How much did you understand of what was going on?
I can remember standing there waiting our turn to be let out of this shelter, and it looked as though the world was on fire. My dad was a fire watcher. I've actually got the little card showed that he'd been trained in fire watching. There were thousands and thousands of incendiary bombs dropped, and of course they were there to put them out. So he was fire watching, and a landmine fell on the house next door, and the house collapsed and buried my father. I can remember coming up from the shelter in the morning. We were taken round to where we lived. Of course, before you got there, you could see that everywhere was devastation. And there was a tea wagon there, manned by volunteers, which was a normal thing where there'd been a big bomb dropped. I heard this person say, "Give this woman a cup of tea, she's just lost her husband." And that's how we realised that Dad had died in the raid.
But nobody told you directly your father's been killed?
No, never did.
They never did?
No, Mum didn't either. We just knew that it happened. But this was happening to not just us two. It was the norm, and you accepted it, strangely enough.
But that's what an extraordinary way of knowing something that was going to change your whole life.
My dad died on the 17th of May. But in March, 2 months before, we all went to photographers in the city centre. And there was Mum and Dad and the 4 children. We all had our photograph taken as a family group. That's the photograph there. Pass it over and I'll show you.
Yeah.
That's my dad. He was only 33.
So this is the last photograph?
It's the only family photograph we have.
Where are you?
I'm at the back with the sticky out hair.
Yeah.
I was 8. But I love that photograph. I carry one with me, a small one in my purse.
You carry it with you all the time?
Yeah, it's in my purse, yes.
Yeah. June's story gets to the heart of one of the main reasons we love the Spitfire. It's a physical reminder of the sacrifices people made during the war, the tragic side of the Spitfire story. We're leaving the Midlands now, just as MH434 did in 1943, when it was delivered by air to RAF Hornchurch in Essex. It was flown by one of the Air Transport Auxiliary, or ATA pilots. They delivered more than 300,000 aircraft, despite being unarmed and without radio communication. They were sent to bases right across the country. All of them were volunteers, and 1 in 5 of them were women. Among them, a 20-year-old Joy Lofthouse.
You ask anyone of the single engines which was their favourite, and it would be a Spitfire. I've heard someone say you only had to blow on the stick and it did what you wanted. It was the nearest thing to flying oneself. It was almost as though the wings were part of you, not part of the aeroplane.